Okay, happy Mother's Day to everyone out there. Yesterday I put in the new leather steering wheel on the Z and shot a little video on that I may post up on the installation of that, but really pleased with it. Came out nice. It matches up with the seats. The leather's kind of a matte finish. Easy, simple project. The steering wheel took a while, came from Poland, but really well done, and just a pretty straightforward install. Really like it. But today's thing is going to be fun. It's a replacement of the Mishimoto fans. And I'll try to back up so you can see, or I'll come in at this angle, it might work better. You can see how tight this all is. Super tight. Spent some time thinking about this on how I'm gonna replace these fans and not have it turn into the largest project in the world. Not quite sure. I got a couple ideas of how I'm going to go at this to try and make it simple, because you can't just lift this out. I'm going to have to do a lot of work to get this thing out and replace these fans. The problem with these fans is this: they work okay, but they don't work too well once you get above 90 degrees here in Texas. I was sitting still for about 20 minutes waiting to pick up my son, and I had the AC on, the windows up, the engine idling, and just watched the engine slowly but surely heat. So oil temps came up, even though I got a 34-row oil cooler in here. Water temps came up, not dramatically like you get when you get an air bubble in the system where it comes up fast. This just came up nice and easy and slow, but steadily got to the point of overheating or getting there. I shut off the motor, long before it overheated, and just managed it that way. As soon as I got back on the road, it cooled off fine. So basically it's a heat soak problem, and the fans aren't moving enough volume. If you go out and look around and Google, this is a very common problem with these Mishimoto systems, fan and the little mounting plate here that goes in, the shroud, there you go. I knew about it when I did the install of the supercharger. I was just so deep in putting so many parts in the car at the time of the install. I was hoping the others were wrong and somehow this would work better for me, which it didn't. It worked well during the winter months and going into the spring, but once we got over 90 degrees, it just wasn't working. Both fans are blowing, everything functionally works, it's just not enough airflow. So I'm installing 2 new fans today. I'll show those to you here in just a moment, talk about them a little bit. I'm gonna try, I think I'm gonna just take the bottom out and see if I can get these bolts undone and pull these fans downward without removing the shroud, and then put the new fans, of course, back up into their place. That's the goal. If that doesn't work, then it gets more complex. I gotta take all the reservoir off, the radiator has to be drained, you have to move some stuff out of the way to get the whole shroud out, so I'm hoping to avoid that if I can. So we'll see how it goes. One way or another, we'll get it done. It's not a huge deal, just trying to keep it as simple as I can make it to get the work done. So like I said, these fan shrouds are not high enough volume, so don't even bother. I think this would hold true for an OEM motor as well too. It wasn't like I was driving the car hard before I stopped and went into idle with the AC. And when the car is just idling, the blower effectively is doing little or nothing, so it's just kind of an idle, right? So don't believe me, just start doing some Googling on these fans, and usually people put them in when they put in a supercharger or a turbocharger because space is an issue and you're trying to squeeze every fraction of an inch out to make everything fit. So yeah, the fans are just not up to the task. So right here you can see I cut the fan shroud even on the Mishimoto to get this piping to fit. This is a CSF radiator. people say it's wide. It is wide, but I will tell you, I measured this mount point to the center point compared to OEM, and the mount point for the shroud is exactly the same. It's kind of weird, but I have pictures. The distance from here to here is the same on this radiator as an OEM radiator. The difference is the OEM radiator has a little plastic thing that comes out to this point for the shroud, and there's an air gap right here. Whereas this one, the radiator fills that entire air gap. So it is a wider radiator, but the mount points are the same. So just something interesting that you wouldn't think because of that. Also, you know, look at, just note kind of the thickness down here of this shroud and how much I had to cut in to get the piping to fit. Again, very common for an install like this. Matter of fact, I don't think I've seen one where they haven't had to do that. So I'm sure some people have found a way to shift the radiator forward or do some other things, but you know, a pretty common thing to have to do that. It still clears the fan, everything works fine as far as that, but it's tight, very tight. Just for the record, this is a DE 2005 Nissan, so just so you know what kind of motor we're looking at here and working on today, because you obviously got the HR and the rev up, and they'll all be different configurations. So let's get started. So I'm going to cut this video off here shortly, pull this thing out, and then I'm going to do some comparisons of the fans to each other. First, I want to just point out once again, I'll go inside my workshop. This one has pretty good width here on the edges, right? It's definitely less than an OEM, but you can kind of see how wide it is up here at the edges of the fan, right? All right, let's go take a look at the new fans. Excuse the mess. Coming here where the AC is. All right, here's the new fans. These are Spal fans. I'll zero in on the make and model. There you go. Yep. And I can tell you right now, just when you pick them up, I'm gonna weigh this compared to the Mishimoto fan. Way kind of feels heavy duty. The motor feels real solid. Also, right away, I noticed that the shroud on the edges is skinnier than the Mishi. So that might work much better for me. I still may have to cut into the edges, but we'll do a measurement on the next video of the edges of the shroud. That's really important how they taper in like that, especially if you're putting a supercharger in like I have. So that's something to consider. So if we get lucky and this thing is actually a little thinner and it looks much thinner just visually, it may just go right in there without any cutting into the shroud at all, which will be another big plus. So here's the box. We'll talk about the wiring a bit later. No big deal there. I'm pretty sure I can handle that. And I've got two of these guys that are going to go in. So what I hear is you put these in and no more heat soak. So we will get them installed, and then of course there's no avoiding Texas, so it's summertime here. So we'll just set them up, and I'm sure I'll get the opportunity to idle car with the AC on, and we're going to see if this does the job. But others have told me do this and you will not have this problem anymore, so I'm pretty confident with it. So I'm going to stop the video here and then tag on the next video as I get further along with taking it apart. Thanks, bye. All right, here we go. So I've got the first fan out of the Mishimoto fan shroud. Here's the Mishimoto fan. Here is the Spal fan. Gonna compare a few things. Number one, let's talk about the wiring. See, the wiring that came with the Mishimoto is kind of handy, mainly because the plug it came with is ready to go to plug into your existing 350Z plug. As you can see, it's just blue wire goes to two blues and black goes to two blacks. I did a little reading on this. One wire is low, one wire is high. I think they actually combine to make the high voltage, but they just do a 1 to 2 and a 1 to 2 on the ground, and that works fine, and that's how the Mishimoto is set up. So the good news is the Spal comes with a different type plug, but since I have the Mishimoto, I'm just going to reuse this plug right here, and obviously I'll just cut it right here, splice it in exactly like these, no problem. And I've got the nice neat plug. But if you were just wiring it from scratch, I saw another video where a guy was talking about this. It's as simple as that. The one blue wire goes to the two blues, and the one black goes to the two blacks, and they go to this type of plug for Nissan. So pretty straightforward. So I brought in a postal scale to weigh the difference in the fan. So we'll do that real quick. Let me turn it on, hold on. Where's the button? Okay, it's set to 0. The Spal fan weighs in at a nice hefty 3.8 pounds. And the Mishimoto weighs in at a very light 2 pounds, 3.7 ounces. So obviously you can feel it when you pick them up. The Spal fan is way heavier duty. It just feels a lot more robust, a lot stronger. The fan design itself, the fan blade design, is completely different. This is the Mishimoto, this is the Spal. The Spal fan is completely different design. I don't know anything about fan blade design, so I couldn't comment one way or the other. One's better than the other. I'm guessing this is better, but I have no idea. The other issue you're going to have to deal with the mount points. The mount points, kind of weird how the Mishimoto works. It has these little connector things, and they slide on here like so. So I'm going to set it on top, the Mishimoto on top of the Spal fan, and we're going to see what we get. I know it doesn't quite work because I've already tried this once. So apologize for the camera here. I'm just kind of blowing and going. And you get 4 of these suckers. They slide in these little grooves in the Mishimoto. I'm just noticing I don't know, this should work. So here we go. I can line up, let me find the holes for the Spal. Okay, there's a hole. I'll line that one up. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out the holes. They don't line up. Let me just leave it at that. Which is not a surprise, as others have told me that would be the case. Not a big deal because it's just a thin aluminum shroud. You can just drill some new holes to match up the new one where you want it. Probably, I'll bet you I'll get 1, if not 2 of these to line up to the existing holes, and probably have to drill a couple of holes, new holes in the shroud to get that to fit. Not a big deal. The other interesting thing, I don't know if I can do this. Again, it's just me. Hold on. All right. Just checking the thickness of the fan shrouds. So a big deal is how thick is the shroud at the end point, because that's where you run into trouble hitting some of the piping for the supercharger. So I'm going to measure the thickness at the edge of the fan for each of these guys. So let me see if I have something handy to measure with. I didn't really prepare that well. Hang on. Here we go. Okay. So this one is the Mishimoto, and it looks to be, hang on, about, I know this is not looking good on video, but what can you do? Probably around 30. Let me just measure it and tell you. Yeah, about 30 millimeters thick at the edge. The Spal fan is hard to hold on to because it's heavier. You know what? It's about the same. It's about a little thinner though, maybe about 27. So it's slightly thinner on the edges than the Mishimoto, but I don't think that's going to be enough to make a difference. I'm probably still going to have to take a chunk out of this one to make it fit. I'm kind of taking a look at that, seeing if that's going to be a problem. We might have an issue with that because of where the fan sits, how close it sits to the edge on the inside here. I have to take a harder look at that later and see if that becomes a problem or not. The good news is, since I've got to punch new holes anyway, I could slightly shift the fan around in the mount point if I need to move it away from where the piping comes in. To remind you, I'm gonna walk back out the car and show you what I'm talking about as far as cutting a little of the fan shroud away. If you look down in here, here's the other fan that I haven't removed yet, and how much I had to chunk out to leave room for the supercharger. So yeah, I don't know. It actually, I cut out way more than I needed to, I think. So there's some room here. There might be a chance to make it all work. Obviously, if I can shift the fan slightly down or to the left, maybe just a little bit, it might make my life easier. You can see I've already removed this one. That's the one I'm showing you. I'm trying to get these out without having to pull the entire car out. I mean, radiator and all kinds of crazy stuff because of all the clearance issues. My goal is to get this one unbolted, slide it over to this side where the other one was, and then pull it out like the first one. And then when I go, I'm gonna stick the first one in, bring it over to here and bolt it in. And that's my plan and my hope. But I'm gonna have to punch some new holes, new mounting holes, and that might give me some trouble, but I've got some pretty good Dremel tools with 90-degree angles and some other stuff that probably should be able to get it with a little effort. We will see. I'll let you know in the next video how it goes. So that's kind of the quick summary of where I'm at. I didn't get the other fan taken out. Definitely the Spal fan is more substantial. Really, that shouldn't be a surprise at the price point of the Mishimoto Shroud with the fans. I mean, would you expect it to have the same quality fan? No, because these Spals are more expensive. And I guess, how much were they? They weren't crazy. I think they were $50 or $60 a fan, but they're definitely heavier duty, bigger motor, completely different fan design. Basically the same size though. The mount points are going to be different, but again, you just got to drill a few little holes in some thin sheet aluminum and you're good to go. So that won't be a big deal, I think. That's it for now. So I'm gonna get the wiring, get the other fan out, and then I'm gonna take care of this little wiring deal so that they use this same plug. And then we're gonna reinstall them. I'll talk to you later. All right, phase 2, right? I'm mounting the Spal fans. As I mentioned in the earlier video, the holes don't line up. You might be able to get one to line up, which I did on this one over here on this side, but you know, really it's not no big deal. This aluminum's super soft but thick enough to drill through, so it's not a big deal. I contemplated doing this in the car with this mounted just to avoid having to drain the radiator and pull this sucker back out, but it was not going to work. Too much hassle, and I'm glad I did this because it can't, you know, it's no big deal. Drain the radiator, got this thing pulled out. It's easier to drill the holes, get everything mounted up correctly, get everything bolted down. You can see all the cutting I had to do right here. This is exactly the same as the cutting I had to do on the other Nishi fan blade to clear the pipe for the Vortech. Seems pretty common. I haven't seen one install one of these yet. Like I said, that didn't have to do this, or they moved the radiator up, which is a major project. It's just super tight, but it all clears. The blades don't hit anything. Everything's cool. You just need that extra little bit of gap there for the piping to mesh up with the supercharger, which is bolted to that bracket, so it's not moving anywhere, right? So you got to clear that, and that's what you have to do to clear it. It has to be very cut down here on this little section. This motor on the Spal is a little taller than the Mishi, but I'm talking 16th, 8th inch, somewhere around there. Just, you know, very, very, very minor. But every little fraction of an inch matters, including with this. So, you know, you just when you think it won't fit, it'll fit. You just got to keep fiddling with it and kind of get it just so that everything clears for this motor. Super excited about this fan. Think it's going to really make a difference. Way heavier duty, as I showed in the other video. So all I got to do is put in the second fan, which is a normal mount in, no cutting or anything special going on there. And then I'm gonna drop this in, and I'm gonna see if I can get the tube in, the down tube from the Vortech. Like I said, it's super tight and a bit of a game. I'm gonna try and mount everything like I said now, drop this fan in, and then put the tube in and see if it gets it all to work. If that doesn't work, I might have to take this fan right here back out, put the piping in, and then slide this fan into position and then do it. It's a little tricky. I think I'm gonna leave this one out right now just to give me more room as I'm trying to get the pipe in here and get it all situated, because this one's easy to do. It's no big deal. I think I can do it even inside of the car, so I'm kind of contemplating that. The trick is the little bolts they supply with the Mishi, or they just kind of go in here and they're loose. So that is, you know, you can glue it with some silicone or do some tricks to hold it in place until you get the nut and the washer on. So that kind of causes me to go, well, maybe I just want to put it on now where it's easy and just see if I can shove the pipe up through the gap. I think I'm going to try that first, because I can always just yank this thing back out and, you know, do some other gymnastics to get it in place. So like I said, very tight fit. You know, what do you say? But the good news is these fans are essentially dimensionally just about the same as the Mishis. I mean, they're really, I'll grab my old Mishi over here. They really are pretty much the same size. It looks like it looks like this one's a little bit bigger, which is nothing wrong with that in diameter. You can see because it got that additional aluminum right here. But it covers the entire hull, and then some. Some people I've read actually have an issue with the limited airflow of these holes, and they've actually gone in and cut out the aluminum of these holes to make them a little wider to fit these bigger fans and get even better airflow, especially when you're driving and you're actually moving at speed, just to have a little more air coming in, because when you think about it, all this metal is reducing the airflow across the radiator to a certain degree. I don't know, it's all a little theoretical, makes logical sense, but I don't know that it makes a difference at the end of the day on the cooling or the heating. So I'm gonna get this other fan mounted in here, and then I'm gonna drop this thing in, and then the fun part comes where I try to get the downpipe jammed back in there onto behind this fan, which is fractions of an inch. But luckily this aluminum actually has some give to it because it's pretty thin aluminum, and so you got a little bit of springiness to it that helps give you just a little bit more to squeeze things in. So more to come. All right, well, as always, putting this pipe in here right here is the battle, man. I've done this now too many times. Here's a supercharger, a Vortech, CSF radiator. These mount points where this shroud mounts are exactly the same as OEM. So if you had a OEM radiator, the shroud would mount in the same spot. This mount point right here is the same distance from here to here, which amazes me. So someday I'm gonna figure out a better way to do this, because it's crazy, pretty much. So just like the other fans, the Mishimotos, I had to cut away the shroud here to make room for the tube. Not the end of the world, just a Dremel tool, cut out, make some room, because the spot right here on the supercharger does not flex, right? It's bolted in, and there's no moving the mount point around on that, so it's done. So I got these new fans in, which is freaking awesome, and they're all wired up. It was a battle, to say the least. Like I said, I had to drain the radiator, take off the tube, take out that. I had to remove the fans, and then basically take the fans out while they're in the car, so that I could get this shroud out. And then in the end, I tried it a couple of different ways, and I ended up mounting the shroud and then sliding these fans into place one at a time, and getting them screwed in. which was kind of tricky because those bolts are kind of loose, but I put some tape around them just to get them stable enough to get the nuts on and kind of, you know, so they wouldn't fall through. But it took some time, a lot of time. It's always a challenge with these suckers. I got these new fans all in place. Everything fits good, just like before, tight as hell, but nothing's hitting anything. I need to tighten up a couple of these clamps down at the bottom and then button it up. And then after I button it up, I got to do the flush and a few other things, but basically just put it back together. The worst is over. The worst is over. Getting these things in took me, I don't even want to tell, I'm ashamed to admit how long this took. If there's some easy way to do this, let me know, because I've done this a few times now, and getting this pipe in front of the motor is just a bear. It's just barely fits in there. Once it's in, you got the clearance, but the clearance is like, as you can see, that pulley and to that pulley and to the fan shroud, everything is freaking 1/4 inch max clearance. So it is a tight fit, but it goes. And everything else looks good. Like I said, I just got to put this hose on, tighten up the blower hose at the bottom, tubing, put in my radiator overfill deal. I can't speak because it's exhausted. And then be ready to put some fluid in and start it up. Check out these new fans. There's a mess here in my garage, so it is what it is. One more time, we got the Spal fans, definitely heavier, stronger, better. Should be able to do the job from everyone tells me as far as blowing. So if you're doing putting a turbo in or putting the Vortech in, don't buy the Mishimoto fans and just install them with the OEM fans that it comes with, because they just aren't up to the task. I would highly recommend you get some Spal fans and go ahead and do it. Just save yourself some trouble, because had I gone ahead and put these Spal fans when I installed the Vortech, I would be doing this project today. So, you know, you cut a corner, you hear on the web that something's a problem, and if you find it enough times, then you should probably listen. And lesson learned on this one. I should have just put in these better fans to start with. So I'll get it all installed. Probably it'll be, I was off today from work, so this is what I did all day. When I get some time during the remainder of the work week, I'll flush the radiator. Yeah, and then really the only test for this thing is to park it and sit and idle for 20 minutes when it's over 90 degrees and see if that does it. It should. Because it was working fine when I was just driving normally around town and even at lights and whatnot, but after about 15 or 20 minutes you could see it heat soaking the motor or the engine. So, okay, so I'm gonna button it up. I'm just rambling here. Thought I'd show you everything. This is a very common issue when you put the Vortech in, and it's always something you deal with. If anybody has found a radiator fan combination that just drops in there and doesn't require any cutting or anything weird and works, let me know, because I have yet to hear that. Usually when you talk to people, at least with the Vortech, they've gone in and done something like I've done, some variation of that to deal with the cooling and you know, make it all work right and fit. So, all right, thanks everybody.